Hey, did you see the latest content, Nuke? Why am I even asking? Of course you did. That's why you clicked on the video. Anyway, let's get into gossiping about it. Yay!
A better you starts today.
Oh my god. It has sent the community into a spin. Is that even the words? Community? Is that... Dude, this whole universe of YouTube is just so foreign. So foreign to me. God, look, I just live on this island. I'm a simple man that floats coconuts over to my other neighbor on the other side who... Yeah, look, it's Tom Hanks on the other side, but yeah, he's getting ready for the Castaway 2, okay? That's what my life is. And so then, as a result, every now and then I get loose internet connection, and then I see what's happening over there, and H3's is suing 3 content creators. And this is a very interesting legal case, wouldn't you agree? Because I think we've always wondered what happens when somebody's transformative content is actually tested in court. I think that's something that people have wondered since the beginning of YouTube, and now they're going to do it with American law. So I don't know what their chances are. I'm not a legal expert in my own country, let alone someone else's. But I will say this about the whole ordeal. Holy hell, someone actually did it. This could have profound impacts. This really could scare people straight until people forget about it again. But if he's successful at doing this, it probably will cause YouTube to make a big clamp down on that kind of content being released, let's say. Anyway, now that we've exhausted the extent of this 20-minute nuke, let's just talk about something that it did raise, which is, what even is creativity? How do you make original content? How would you get away from that man not suing you? Where do you draw the line on that? Because I'll tell you something. I think that the more creative you are, the more you don't have to sit there and watch other people's videos to just click over the ad rev, because you actually would be thinking of something original to say, because that's how your brain would be working. And on top of that, let's be honest, you probably wouldn't do as much react content. You'd probably come up with other things that you can produce, and you would probably be putting effort into those things. So it would be all around better, even though you probably wouldn't be rewarded in the algorithm, as I know from many, many years of doing creative things. But look, that's not important. The point is, what we are going to discuss today is, because I think this is really important for you, yeah? Your life is going to be profoundly improved if you're a more creative person. Because let's just think about it, in any job ever, if you are able to... What is the commotion out there? Someone's got road rage on this tropical island with no cars. Must be a jet ski. So, anyway, let's just talk about what creativity is for a second. Because just think about this. How much is your life improved? First off, we just know from the research, right? Creative people have a much richer internal life. They're much more able to amuse themselves. They don't have to sit there and watch other people amusing you. Just passively sitting away their life. Oh, that person sucks. Now let's move on to the next. That person is okay, right? They're not endlessly flitted to a screen. It does force you to start looking at the world in a beautiful way, and creativity begats creating things in the real world. I think that like, it's not the only skill that is ever like somebody who is just creative outright by themselves, a bit beep beep. But if you are able to foundationally put your creativity into something that is, of use to the world will become a better place, and you will be responsible for it, and you will have a much richer life as a result. Really, I think that there's 2 intelligences in life, and obviously this is not displayed by people who just sit there and watch passively content and don't comment at all. That's the opposite. But I would say that creativity, really, if we can just define it for a second, is 2 ideas hitting in a surprising way that's never been done before. Or at the very least, no one knows it's never been done before. That's not plagiarism until somebody points it out. And then those 2 ideas hitting in a way that has never been hit before, and that idea being useful. That's something that you need to start training in your mind. What is useful? There's a very interesting study that was done where they got a bunch of students to sit there. These were freshmen in college. And they just said, think of all the uses for a brick, everything that you could do for a brick, yeah? And then they would mark it on if that is actually a practical idea and it's been used in a surprising way. And the more surprising it was, is in that no one else in the class got that answer, then they give them 2 points. And then you could scale people on creativity there. In fact, and there's probably other psychologists or whatever out there that could school me on this, and by all means. But in the meantime, this is my theory that I've read it in other books, and I'm sure that there's other ones, because it really sounds like something just like, no, you've got to have a diet that has nothing but broccoli in it, all right? We call it the tree giraffe diet, yeah? And then you'll talk to somebody else and they'll say like, no, it's got to be all oysters. Of course it does. But the point is, I think that there is only 2 intelligences in the world. There is intelligence, and that's very good. That's a very good thing to have. It just means you're going to be good at everything. But then the other one is creative intelligence, and these two aren't necessarily intertwined. They can be, but for instance, there's people in my orbit that are way smarter than me. Way smarter. But I think I'm probably the most creative. I think that my brain is able to come up with the most ideas, and the most ideas that are actually useful, that can slot in. And that's why I really like comedy, for instance. I really like writing comedy, because obviously a bunch of them aren't going to work, are not going to be useful in the context. But when you really hit a joke that you just know night after night is going to land, and it's always going to get that, oh, yes, very good, kind of laugh. That's what the game's all about. And that is creativity in its rawest form. It is 2 ideas hitting together that's useful. Anyway, the whole thing is, what Ethan really is talking about in his thing is that when it becomes like transformative content, this is something that I think is like very, very important for you to understand. Transformative content really only has to be about 10% original. It only has to be about 10% original. So if you're just sitting there and not reacting to it at all, and you're just sitting in the corner, and then you stop it, and then you move on to the next thing, by definition, that is not creative. If you just did that 10%, if you had something that exists, it's a very good example. If you have something that exists and you change it by 10%, you can become a millionaire. You can go to the patent office and you can say, this is a completely different invention. Isn't that incredible? I mean, look, think about it. You know how there was that real trend where there was the tomato sauce and not mayonnaise, I can't believe it, mustard in the same box. You just have to put it on the same sausage. Yay. I mean, both of those things exist. They were combined in a creative way, and they come out at the same way. It really is not that big of a jump. It really isn't. But whoever came up with it probably made Heinz millions of dollars, not themselves. But the point is, that is what creativity is worth in the real world. A different idea, building a better mousetrap, can completely change your life. I'm living testament to it. And I think it all just comes from exercising your brain in that way. Finding something that you like and then trying to just morph around with it and play with it endlessly. This is a very good thing for the human brain to do. I do it every single day of my life. The days that I don't do it, I can feel my brain is worse. Do you understand? So, if I go up on stage and I haven't written comedy for an hour or so that day, I will be way less sharp on stage. Way less sharp. And I will be basically one of those reactors sitting there. When someone yells something out to me, "You suck, Geordies," I'll go, "Shut up." And the audience will go, "Hey," because they're all drunk, so who cares? But the thing is, it's not going to have that nice, clippable TikTok moment feel to it, is it? It just won't. The thing is, I think this, you are rewarded for creative output in life. You are absolutely rewarded for it. And like everything else, it is a muscle. And some people just naturally are better at it, and some people are naturally worse at it. But it doesn't mean that it's something that you shouldn't be cultivating for the rest of your life. You should be cultivating the creative outlet. The reason that you are, cultivating the creative outlet is because it makes your brain work better in the thing that you are actually paid for. So even if you aren't, this is like something that you hear over and over again, right? People that are like into engineering, or politicians, for instance, like very boring down the line jobs. Who are the really talented ones? Well, I found it really interesting that when I went to Parliament, Tony Burke was saying, hey, we've got a band. We've got the parliamentary band. And there's people from all different political persuasions that go in because of their love of music and they just jam together. Now, I'm not going to name any more names other than Burke because I don't know if they want to be named or not in it. But they're really good performers. As in, they're good at performing in Parliament. And they stick in your mind as particularly exceptional, switched-on parliamentarians. And I think that that is directly linked to the creative outlet of music. This is the whole thing. If you are not exercising your brain creatively, your world becomes rigid. You will never see alternatives and opportunities. And if you don't see alternatives and opportunities, then you are basically just set into the same train track until death. It's a very scary thing not. This is what is kind of interesting about H3's thing, because if he kind of just forces people again to, even I'm talking about having insights while you're watching videos, for instance. That can be a very creative process. If you are actively trying to make your brain do that, it can be. So imagine if he does scare the whole community from doing this. Well, it'll just raise commentary. And if you raise commentary, maybe people become more educated. Maybe people get different insights. Maybe people, as a result of their audiences watching this and becoming more educated and having more insights, they start having more insights themselves. This is very similar to, look, you want to start thinking like a great human being. You read a bunch of great human beings' autobiographies because they're the ones that are writing it down. This is their brain on page. It's the same thing here. I think that it is your duty, if you are at the very least doing something like this, you should be trying to think of new ideas. You should be thinking of new ways to look at something, at the very least, even if it's not useful. That is part of the creative process. That one's not useful, that one's not useful. That's all well and good. But just for your own sake, just for like the general elevation of humanity, it's very important that you do have a creative outlet. It's very important that you focus on that creative outlet because it does raise the tide of the rest of your life. Anyway, if you want more tips on how to be creative, if you want a bunch of other tips, make sure that you sign up to Jordan Shanks' Patreon because that is just a life coach for the cheapest price that you can possibly get. Every single person that signs up to Jordan Shanks always writes to me all the time. I've got people that, for instance, have written to me years afterwards and said, I don't even watch it anymore, and I'm still a member. And I said, why? And then they said, because I owe you so much. And I feel exactly the same way to my life coach, you know? Because it's just like, a life coach fundamentally changes you because it's somebody that believes in you, that wants you to get the most out of you. Right? That's their job. Their job is to try and get the most out of you. And as a result of that, you keep growing. Of course you're going to keep growing. If you don't have a life coach, it's kind of like, I want to be a world tennis star and then not having a tennis coach. It's not going to happen. So if it's not me, find someone else. But sign up there. I've also got seminars. The seminars on Friendly Geordie's Live. And I've got other ones that are like, I don't know, I think I've got Perth and Melbourne signed up. And then we're going to do some Sydney ones soon. So make sure that you click all the links below. All of them. Bye.